It's the 9th of July, I'm Arthur S. Falls, and you're listening to episode 8 of Beyond Bitcoin. Nothing you hear on this show is investment advice. If you choose to store your ill-gotten gains in something other than your mattress, remember what Adam used to say. Consult your local futurist, lawyer, and investment advisor. Also, remember the opinions you hear are only those of the people expressing them. If you find yourself getting a bit worked up about what you hear said, just chill out. Our opinions may differ, but we're all on the same team. I know what you're thinking. Where's the bird? Well, it was suggested that in order to broaden our listener base, we should include a segment on something other than our usual fare. Indigenous New Zealand bird life was to be that topic, but unfortunately the workload is heavy enough, and so after some experimenting with a bit of formatting, the segment has been canned. Sorry guys, with any luck we'll resurrect the idea down the track a bit. Today we're focusing on higher level deployments of the counterparty protocol. By now everyone is used to hearing about Swarm, the Crowdsales equity platform, and Joel Dietz joins me again with Ben Ingram. Also with us is Jeremy Lamb of Vend, the machine that churns out assets in exchange for, well, whatever you tell it to accept. As usual, good conversation gets in the way of structured interview, which suits me just fine. We look at XBTC, bringing altcoins onto the counterparty exchange, customer and employee rewards, carbon credits, and Swarm's powerful voting system. While we're waiting for Joel, I had a question about XCP and XBTC. XCP I appreciate as a currency that's more fluid on the counterparty platform, and XBTC is obviously it's a fluid version of Bitcoin, and I'm wondering how these, if you see these as competing for the general currency of use.
That's actually quite a good question. The way I see it is actually in a way competing for liquidity, but at the same time they work hand in hand. So obviously XCP is a native currency for the counterparty platform itself, and it's a trustless currency on the counterparty platform. XBTC, as you said, is like an analog, for lack of another word, of BTC. So in that sense, people are very comfortable with the idea of trading against BTC, but it's not as trustless as XCP, at least in its current form. So it's a little bit of a gradient here in terms of when you compare liquidity and trustlessness of the actual asset itself. So yes, in some ways they compete, in some ways they complement each other, because you can obviously trade against XCP and XBTC against each other, and you get that really frictionless trading that you'd like to have on the decentralized exchange.
You can exchange your exposure frictionlessly.
That's right. So you can basically set a tolerance for how much risk you are willing to take for the issuer of an asset, and then you can price that in on how you actually wish to offer that asset for sale. So we, like US dollars, for example, there's many different values a US dollar might have in different countries, depending on either who you exchange your current currency for or where you actually exchange it for. Similarly, you could have different versions of BTC, and actually there are too. So I haven't seen it being mentioned before, but there's actually an MP BTC as well on the counterparty network, which is a very similar thing to XBTC, where it's backed by BTC from a different person. The service itself is different, however. So the service level agreement, the fee, and say the profile of the individual corporation offering MP BTC is different to XBTC, and it is priced differently.
But they're both using your platform.
Actually, no. So that's where the difference in say the venue of the issuer is. So XBTC is issued using the same technology vendors. It's completely automatic, and it happens in a completely transparent way. And the source code which runs XBTC will be available for everyone to see. Whereas, as far as I know, the other venues to get a BTC-like asset doesn't run the same way. Either it's run manually, or you don't have visibility of all the funds that are being kept there.
When you convert a token to another token, I'm wondering if you see any avenues for converting arbitrary input, like say, for example, marketing performance measured in referrals to stake in an enterprise's profits.
That's a very interesting question. It isn't something that I had thought about. That's a rather good idea, actually, you've got there. Okay, so...
But, if you can take up a granular performance metric, say, and convert that into an asset, I guess that would come probably under the umbrella of, an oracle. But I don't know of a platform that would then take a data feed and rather than using that for, say, a binary bet, to resolve a binary bet or as a price feed, I don't know of anyone that would then convert that into a new token. You know what I mean?
That certainly is possible. So from a technical standpoint, it completely is possible as long as an API exists, and the API exists such that there's a deterministic way of recognizing that a certain event occurred. So when we're talking about Bitcoin, that's pretty easy because we've got a public ledger, we've got something that we can essentially tap into via the API, via Bitcoin D, and we can deterministically say, yes, we've received a send on this address and it equals this number of Bitcoins. In the same fashion, you could tap into any other API that you could deterministically say, okay, well, in your case, this oracle produce a particular result, and after the fact, we've gone and rated it, or however perhaps it's done through a decentralized way, and therefore that rating might be 100, whatever, 100 million, 100 coins. That's completely possible. And I suppose when you mentioned that, what sprung to my mind, rather than a oracle or a crypto kind of application, was something more towards like an internal organ. So one thing that's big in large organizations is key performance metrics and all that kind of stuff. So why wouldn't it be possible to tap into internal systems, say if we're talking about a support system which measures performance of how quick someone can resolve queries or feedback from customers, and use that as a means to issue points such that people can accumulate those points, whether you'd call it loyalty points or anything like that, and then use that in an internal store, for example.
I'm noticing a trend in this move toward using people as these kind of highly kind of metric-based production units.
Right. I see what you're saying, yes.
And I wonder if it's pretty dark. It's pretty dark, but I wonder if one of the side effects of this kind of technology that we're dealing with now is going to be, or one of the deployments we're going to see it in, is internally in these organizations.
It's certainly possible, though I suppose there's a bit of a trade-off, because when we're talking about using technology which is decentralized, you have a loss of a loss of performance. So that performance is say efficiency is perhaps a better word. So to be able to store such information, perhaps they could just pick an internal database in the company to do so. But what this technology allows you to do is open up interoperability, and that's actually something that's really large in the industry as a whole, and that's interoperability. And if we open up interoperability, the amount of opportunities really increase. So what you have here is, say, let's call it a metric or performance-based coin. That's instantly then interoperable with a loyalty program. What if you could say, look, I'm going to trade my performance points for some frequent flyer points on an airlines, and I'm going to take a holiday. Now that suddenly sounds a lot more interesting than, oh yeah, you can probably get yourself, yeah, that's right, or or bar mix or something. So that's where companies can use such technology to engage people.
That brings, you know, real added value to reward programs if they can be, you know, if you can have kind of a market maker for these for loyalty programs.
Yes, I think so. I think there'll be resistance, obviously, because I think companies aren't used to having their programs available. In fact, the way that companies structure these loyalty programs are ways to increase profits, and unless they see that by opening up interoperability that they can increase off profits by engaging more people, then perhaps there'll be some resistance at first. But I think the point that you have there is actually really good. So market making in this sense is actually a huge market, is a huge thing. So this is where advertisers and people who want to get into the mindshare of people can step in. So all of a sudden you aren't just giving away, say, iTunes cards to someone who calls up on the telephone. You're giving away iTunes cards to people who have essentially earned them in some way or fashion.
It's interesting to think how these programs, or how this has the potential for unifying, I guess, all of these like gift cards. I mean, when I first heard about Vend, I immediately thought Bitcoin accepting Coke machines. You know,
and I think that's maybe the reason why we went that kind of direction, because it's something tangible that people can hold on to and they can understand, right?
Really, absolutely. And everything in the crypto space, or at least my experience of it, has been really abstract and quite distant from the world of things. And to bring it back a bit is, it's refreshing, and this is the direction that we need to move in, is actually interact with the world of objects that you hold in your hand, really.
Yes, I agree with you there. Actually, one of our partners or people that we talk to fairly frequently is the Digital Tangible Trust. Have you spoken?
I've heard of them. I haven't had a look at their website.
It's really something worth having a look at, because it goes to the point of what you said, that that we need to bring things back to the tangible world, or to the physical world, so that people can understand what crypto means. And what Tariq's doing in Digital Tangible Trust is the way he puts it, is to digitize physical assets. And the first thing that he's digitizing is gold and silver coins. So essentially it's a gold token that you can buy from him, based it's on the counterparty platform, and it's fully backed by real physical gold or silver coins, and those are kept in a real custodian, and you can claim your gold coins back when you want it to. So these things have value, but at the same time, you can call up the custodian and you can hold a gold coin in your hand.
So is that through something like some analog of, say, Ricardian contracts or something? Like both human and machine passable, or is that like where does the? I should probably be asking him.
Probably, and actually, I don't know what a Ricardian contract is.
It's something that's just come up, and it's something that's just come up in conversation recently on the idea of kind of both human and machine passable contracts that just have just a contract, but it's got a bunch of code in there as well, and a bunch of keys.
Right, and you can the transport in which you could actually conduct your transaction could be like Pigeon, or it could be electronic. Is that the?
It is, and then it can also be legally interpreted as well as interpreted by an autonomous agent.
Right, that's very cool. I'll have to have a read up on that.
I know that you've got Vend going pretty much basically on. Well, I mean, you've got Vend going on Counterparty, and you can do pretty much anything that interacts with the Bitcoin API. Can you use Vend to, say, convert a Litecoin into a Counterparty asset?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, hello, Joel.
Hey, Joel. Hey.
I tried texting you guys. You didn't respond, so.
Oh, sorry, man. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Well, we are here. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we've been here.
Just chatting away.
But I mean, we can wait for it if you're busy.
I am, but I can be ready in 5 minutes if that works. So.
Yeah, it's all good, man.
Is that okay? All right.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, super. I'll be back.
All right, catch ya.
Cool. See you, Joel. Yes. So your question, absolutely. So one of the low-hanging fruit is any altcoin which implements the Bitcoin API. So the way that we talk to Bitcoin is via the API. We don't want to directly tie ourselves into the data structures of Bitcoin or things like that. So we tap into the API where we are shielded from a lot of the intricacies and, say, problems that might occur. And as a result, we can also tap into any altcoin as well, which follows that same API. And Litecoin, Dogecoin, Peercoin, the major altcoins at the moment, all share the same API. So absolutely we can.
That's awesome, because that really is. It's funny, that we've this holy grail technology everyone was waiting for. Last year is completely upon us, but I haven't seen the integration of altcoins onto a decentralized exchange yet.
Mm-hmm. That's actually something that we are working on. So what we are looking for is for members of community of the various altcoin communities to actually come and contact us. So we're also trying to seek altcoin communities as well, for those who are interested in bringing versions of their altcoin onto the decentralized exchange. And what we can offer from the counterparty side is a more liquid market, perhaps, that some altcoins might have. So, for example, if you are launching your own altcoin, you no longer have to go and try and beg or vote or pay to vote for your altcoin to be listed on an exchange. You can download Vend, you can configure it yourself, and you can join. You can create an asset on the counterparty platform that represents your altcoin, and then you can trade it. You can get people to gateway into Counterparty and trade on the decentralized exchange. So developers have that control now.
The catch is, though, that the keys for the coins themselves, they have to be kept on a server, don't they? Yes.
So in the current form, we do have plans in the future to reduce or as much remove the trust on the gateway itself, which is something that perhaps we can touch on in a moment. But by the same token, if you launch an altcoin, you do have to trust the developer anyway, because you don't have the you don't have a product unless the developer actually keeps on bringing it forward itself. So you can't remove trust anyway from the equation in the end. It's a fairly large thing. So we can the technology is becoming available, and as it becomes available, we will integrate that into Venn to reduce the trust to the smallest amount possible in the gateway itself. So one thing that we've been discussing internally is a set of multiple vending machines that run in a federated consensus mode to release funds from a multi-sig address. And that would reduce the trust in a single operator to a large percentage. But if we're talking about trust, we still will always have to trust the issuer of the asset, because whether it's a altcoin or whether it's an asset backing another asset. Sorry, it's an asset which is backed by another asset like a gold coin, or whether it's something else. There is trust involved in the issuer itself.
Yeah, well, that's the catch, isn't it? And there's not much else. There's not much that can be done about it. That's where Joel comes in, I suppose.
That's right. So what we need to do is we need to have a system. And ideally, that system would be a decentralized system that you can essentially either rate or vet or ensure that those who enter the platform are of a certain quality. And that really will improve the value of the whole ecosystem tremendously.
I've been looking at Open Transactions. I've been following their forums a little bit recently, and they're deeply entrenched. Not Open Transactions, sorry, Open Bazaar. They're deeply entrenched over there with reputation, because that's the basis of their entire platform. That's I'm sure they have all kinds of challenges ahead of them with a platform that elaborate. But yeah, reputation is real. It's really difficult to establish a reliable system for rating people's reputations.
It is. It's actually one of the most difficult problems that I think are out there at the moment. So even when you have a system, let's say eBay, where the people on it are far from anonymous. Of course, it's possible to create multiple identities, but the people who are on the platform are far from anonymous. Such a system, such a platform still finds it difficult to create something which is a reliable way of rating or establishing what the trust is in a particular individual, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the other thing as well is you can just have with eBay, you've got a binary option, yay or nay. Was it a healthy transaction or not? But at the end of the day, if what you've bought if it was a good transaction, but if what you bought was not quite up to spec, but you can't give them the thumbs down, you're left giving them 100%.
That's right, and if you've transacted on eBay for a little bit as well, you know that there's sort of like this culture of, if it wasn't so bad and we could resolve your issue in the end, then give us a thumbs up rather than a thumbs down, right? So there's this other.
But it took a month, man.
That's right. And PayPal held my funds. But it's still a good thing. It was great in the end.
I mean, there has been no innovation in the reputation space that's really caught on. I'm sure someone's out there working on the problem, but yeah, it certainly hasn't seen mass deployment anywhere. I guess while we're on the eBay subject, is there any outlook for... Do you have any thoughts on... Do you see any avenue for fiat currency to enter? Oh, have we got you, Joel?
Yep, yeah, I'm here.
Great.
Hey, Joel.
And available for the next while, so...
Cool, man. All right, let's see. We've been having a pretty productive conversation, but I'm sure I've got... where's my little list of Both. There we go. Okay, so Joel, you're the co-founder of crowdsale platform Swarm, and Jeremy, you're the creator of the automated currency conversion tool Vend. So to begin with, could you guys explain the relationship between your platforms?
Perhaps, Joel, you'd be the best person to speak about that, so you can explain how Vend is being used by Swarm.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Vend allows us to easily, do this sort of exchange between some kind of currency, primarily Bitcoin, and an asset that's listed on Counterparty. And, we're basically using this, version that Jeremy created with a kind of few tweaks that are, for our kind of custom solution, and we're kind of gradually adding on some other things, that kind of are identify or whatever sort of fixed needs that we've identified through the process of doing our own crowd sale. So I guess you could say that we're basically using the vending machine that Jeremy has built as kind of a core part of our infrastructure at the moment.
I'm not sure if this is this translates so easily into this medium, but could you explain, Jeremy, how how funds that are donated to the Swarm crowd sale address are then converted into Swarm coin?
Yeah, sure. I'll try and explain it. It is difficult when something is a little bit abstract. However, I'll give it a go. So the way that Vend works in the mode that Joel has set up for Swarm is it's set up in a listener mode. So what that means is that there's a separation of the vending machine from the address which is receiving the funds. So what that means is that Joel is currently running the vending machine. However, that vending machine never needs to access the private key of the funds that are being sent to Swarm. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, Joel, those funds are actually going into a secure wallet, equivalent of like cold storage. And what Vend does is it uses the feature of the blockchain that is having a public ledger to recognize when Bitcoins is being sent and confirmed at a particular address. Once Vend has recognized that transaction has taken place, then Vend will connect to the counterparty network and it will send the Swarm asset out to the person or the individual that had sent Bitcoins in the first place. And once again, because Bitcoin is a public and open ledger, we can determine through that ledger who sent the Bitcoins in the first place to send the Swarm asset to the originator. Was that clear? I hope it was.
That was perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. Coming back to you, Joel, I'm wondering how you feel the idea or the understanding of the process of a crowd sale unfolding has developed over, the Mastercoin, NXT, BitShares, Counterparty, MadeSafe, crowd sales, how that's informed the current understanding of crowd sale strategy.
Yeah, I think we've learned a ton from that, and I think that's one of the core things that, we're building out the intelligence for. And in fact, we just presented a paper, kind of one of the first academic papers on crypto economic systems, and particularly related to crowd sales, at an academic conference in Notre Dame University this past weekend. And there's, a lot, just, I would say it's still very, very early stage, but, there's, and every one of these kind of crowd sales so far has had a little bit of a different model to them. And I don't know, I could talk about every single one of them and kind of what we've learned from them. But, one of the kind of core things is that, you need incentivization structures to get people in early, and kind of create movement in that direction. That can be done with kind of, some sort of slope on the return. And a lot of people also have a strong desire to get rid of or diversify their illiquid assets. So this is kind of and you're kind of playing this is actually, we have not, that was one of the things that got people upset about the MadeSafe thing, is that, there were a lot of people who had a lot of master coins that were very excited to kind of transfer them into something else. And, in that case, they gave a kind of very, very substantial preferential rate, which is not something that we've done. But, there's still like a lot of just a general speaking desire in the market to kind of shift around these relatively illiquid assets. Although I think, one of the cool things about the vending machine in particular, since that's the topic of this call, is that I think it will add a lot of liquidity to something like the counterparty assets when you can more easily swap them as opposed to having to go through the decentralized exchange, which is, fairly time consuming.
Yeah. We were just talking about the interoperability of that Vend allows, and how this we're beginning to see through IPOs, again, like you were saying, this interoperability further extended by by bringing liquidity to like you said, to these less liquid assets. I'm wondering, you guys know about the carbon credits system?
Yeah, actually, our COO here of Swarm worked on carbon credits for a while himself. So.
Well, then this will be great, because I've got a workmate he's got a forestry plot, and in New Zealand we had carbon credits internally, and then they opened them up to the international market, and they lost 99% of their value or something like that. It was really severe, and but the way they'd structured it, a lot of people had been trading on the carbon credits of the forestry that they were producing, and found themselves underwater on a plot of trees that, in order to cut down, they had to buy back the carbon credits for. Long story short, there's a bunch of underwater people in forestry because of gaming of the carbon credit system after the fact. And I'm wondering if you guys have any thoughts on how carbon credits deployed using you guys' methodologies might appear. Does that question make sense? Oh, I think I just lost someone.
I'm still here. I don't think I feel qualified to answer that, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
In the UK, which I guess the centre of climate change action, government sponsored in the UK, and one of the largest climate change agencies in the world, sponsored quite a few of the carbon credit schemes and actually devised the rules for them. So I have a little background in that space before here. And if the question is, would we have something to contribute to that? Absolutely. I mean, there was a number of different networks that came into operation, probably most notably a company called C3 Networks in the US, which was started by Thomas Siebel of Siebel Software fame. But the problem was, what we saw was an emergence of these centralized exchanges that didn't really have any trust basis for the operation of either credit providers or the money maker side of it either. So I've heard all sorts of horror stories of companies in the Amazon sending people bags of tree seeds and saying each one of these seeds embodies a tree that could be planted and therefore could be counted as carbon credits. So, it was a system that unfortunately, despite great intentions, was rife with fraud, and really what was lacking was that trust processing network and due diligence. So
yeah, carry on. That was I mean, certainly for us, I mean, ours dropped to cents. I mean, right now I don't know, I think they might have gotten as low as 17 cents when the scheme was opened up to the international market.
Well, where that came about, and we watched that happen, was there were a number of truly great schemes put into place around the world that really did have and take to heart the intention of encapsulating spent carbon, is the way of looking at it. So, spent carbon is we burn dead dinosaurs, we release their carbon. That's the fundamental basis of it. Likewise, we burn timber,
we actually release the carbon. There's all sorts of different ways of releasing entrapped or managed carbon. Now, a very easy way to put it back into place, obviously, is in the form of trees. You know, they're great at temporarily, I mean, for hundreds of years, storing carbon. They're a little bit different to the fossil fuel, which is where the primary depletion came from. And when you think about that, you see where, while it sounded like a great idea, it isn't really an ongoing solution to the problem. So you're fighting a losing battle if you think you're going to replace the carbon released from fossil fuels with a temporary solution like a tree. Trees are beautiful, but they take space. They're a very expensive solution for the carbon they embody. So, but people did it, and it's still a positive impact in many ways, but the thing that started to emerge was a scam aspect, so which had the effect of destabilizing the value placed on the real schemes, and also undermining the value in it, because people fundamentally, unfortunately, when faced with the option of, say, offsetting their flight, if they could do it for 30 cents or they could do it for $5, unfortunately, they generally chose the 30-cent option. And invariably, the person that could do it much cheaper was because they weren't really doing it. You know, how did battle that? If someone says, I've got a bag of seeds here, actually a sack, I can tell you could almost reforest the Amazon with a few sacks of seeds. You know, it really is that difference, that a sack full of tree seeds takes significantly less space than those trees. So what we saw was people effectively selling seeds, and based on their potential to offset carbon. So you had like a carbon futures market or carbon offset futures market that just destroyed the real market. So it's a real shame. But really what it boiled down to, as I said, was bad due diligence and a lack of a trust network to actually expose where the money flow was in this. So, you know, it became just a great way for people to make money rather than a great way to do something good.
And while I've got you, this is a bit rude. This is a bit rude to you, Jeremy. I guess I'll be quick though. I was just talking to Jeremy about using arbitrary data feeds to create crypto assets, and I'm wondering if you see any way to take a feed from, or take a granular unit of carbon embodied in, say, a single tree, and convert that into an asset.
I think what you're talking about is something that I'm almost ashamed that I didn't think of. I'm sitting at this table thinking, oh damn, how am I immersed in this Bitcoin space and trading of creation of altcoins and not creating a link to my past? And it makes a lot of sense. I hope someone will do it and launch a project on Swarm, but I hope that they're ready for us to scrutinize their ass.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I actually didn't catch your name. You dropped out right before you came on, I think.
That's right. I'm Ben Ingram. So if you look on the Swarm website and the team, you'll find me in the middle there. My happy smiling face staring right back at you.
Ah, cheers. Good to meet you, Ben.
I'm from the right side of the world as well.
Okay, well let's bring this all back to Swarm and Vend. As I've kind of got this worked out, we've got Swarm acting as translator and kind of pioneer, charting the real world territory for innovations coming from the crypto equity space and the crypto token space, and translating it into translating those innovations from the real world, which may not yet have found a deployment or found an employment for the cryptocurrency or crypto equity tokens, and bringing all of those things together. Is that a fair description of what you guys are?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. So obviously the kind of immediate application of that is in the kind of crowdfunding world, where we think the kind of crypto equity model has a lot of benefits compared to, old crowdfunding technology.
Well, we totally agree. I mean, the principle is take anything that can be represented or tokenized. So usually identified by something that was traded, and you could be talking about commodities, which includes carbon, of course. So, when we talk about carbon trading, effectively, we're talking about commodity trading. So anything in the commodity trading world, anything in the financial world, really, because then you're talking about virtual entities where you're just coming up with a tool that's able to be used as a trading mechanism. So there's huge applicability anywhere in that world. And then likewise, I mean, the extension of it is as a voting tool, which we're doing for our corporate governance. So, that's what crypto provides, is a trust network for trading. And anything that you can map to a token works.
The whole trick is to actually tie it to that token, though. That's the finding a way to do that in a democratic and fair fashion is...
Yeah, you're right. That's the trick, and there's lots of ways to do it. I mean, a great example is Counterparty. Obviously, we're working on their platform, and we see that with the arbitration feeds for their betting tokens, for example, is a great way of tying absolutely the outcomes to one thing or another. So, and there's going to have to be those sorts of things. As you said, a way to bind the value of a token to a carbon credit, for example, and have someone able to, arbitrate that it's true. But and that's what our due diligence is for, is really assessing that there is a valid model to map something of value, or the value that's represented in the coin. And that's probably why that's the single most important aspect of Swarm's operation, is to perform that due diligence.
That's got to be a really difficult undertaking to do in a way that is going to be acceptable to all parties. I mean, you're really trying to please, you really have to try to please everyone, don't you?
You couldn't have put that more succinctly. That is a really, really hard thing to do. We spend a lot of hours every day not really getting past lots of aspects of it. And that's why we started with our crowdfunding before we do everything.
Yeah, fair enough.
Hey, this is Jeremy here. I might pose a question and take your position for a moment there, Arthur, if I could.
By all means.
So I am interested in that point, actually, that you raised before, Ben, about the process. Or how do you see it working? Because obviously, when I see from the technical point of view, I see there's a very large number of shareholders or people who are interested in the platform. How are you going to be able to represent the view of this vast number of people on something which is essentially a binary outcome? Do we project onto the Swarm or do we not?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit there, Jeremy. I'm hoping it's not my connection at this end, but you were saying, how are we going to represent the view of the large number of investors?
Yes, that's right. What are your ideas about that? Because there are a large number of investors, and there's a single outcome in the end. Well, for the decision of whether to bring a project on the Swarm or not.
No, I think that it's not that simple. And certainly our voting doesn't have to be binary. So if you've seen, I don't know if you've seen, Jeremy, but we're actually, this interview is being conducted, on my screen right now is a newsletter that I'm about to send, which is just to remind everyone about the first Swarm investor vote, which happens today. And it's probably, I'm going to be a little bold and, as I put it, I'm blowing our own bugle a little bit here. But I think that one of the most important things we're doing is probably using these crypto equities as a voting coin. My statement that I've been saying to some of the mainstream press the last couple of days is that my perspective is this probably the single most important event ever to occur in the world of corporate governance since corporate governance. We're basically going to allow our investors to participate absolutely directly and transparently in the decisions that are made of us as a company. And it's not just binary. So a little bit like the preferential voting system that exists for electing leaders in some countries, not necessarily every small island in the world has the same system, but the idea of a preferential vote means that, okay, if you don't get the outcome you wanted, maybe you'll get the next best outcome. Now, to do that, that's an imperfect voting system in operation. But for example, let's say that you own 10 swarm coins. What I'm going to give you is 10 voting coins. So let's say that I had 5 potential outcomes for something. I'll let you distribute your vote amongst those 5 potential outcomes. You could effectively say, I don't care and not vote at all, or I don't care, I'm going to put 2 tokens on every vote, which would tell me either I didn't care for your vote, or I did care for the vote, but not the outcome. Or you could say, I'll put all of my voting tokens on one outcome because it matters that much to me, or I'll split it amongst my preferred 3, for example. So really, it's not just about the ability to vote, but the ability to really clearly express your opinion on matters. So we can't get a perfect world. The reality is not everyone is going to be satisfied with every outcome all the time. But I think we're putting in play a system that'll mean we have an incredible amount of visibility of what the sentiment of people is, what it is that gets people involved. So the sort of statistics it's going to reveal for us is how many took part in the vote. Was it people with high holdings or lower holdings? Because we can tie the vote distribution back to the level of investment. I actually think we're going to see an interesting reverse bias that what we do as a company may matter a lot more to those who have very small holdings. So someone who's put in 1/3 of a Bitcoin or half a Bitcoin, it probably matters to them a great deal. And that, think of it as opposed to a whale who has a lot of Bitcoins and has put in 20 or 30. You know, to them, this might seem far less significant. So I think we're going to get a really strong grassroots view and very broad view of all of the decisions we make. So how are we going to do it? We are going to engage our investors very actively. And I mean, this starts today. It's July 4th. So we thought it was kind of a fun thing to launch, despite the fact I'm an Australian living in England. We thought Independence Day was a great idea, or, you know, it suited our timing, if nothing else, to launch our voting platform. So, you know, we've already crowdfunded on our crowdfunding platform. Well, now we're turning our crowdfunding platform into a decentralized crypto voting platform. So if people's heads didn't explode last week, just wait for it to start today.
Wow, that sounds... I mean, I had no idea that you guys were... I mean, maybe that's just me being uninformed, that you guys were holding a vote today. What's the vote on?
It is. Well, I can tell you because it'll be public. It's already on our blog if you want to read the details. But to say that, we are in phase 1 of our crowdfunding period, as you probably know, which has a target of 4,500 Bitcoins. We've had a lot of people comment about what is proposed as our phase 2 round, which would take us out to significantly more Bitcoin. So a long tail, but projected out to 21,000 Bitcoins. Now, a lot of people have come back to us and said, aren't you guys just being greedy here? You know, that's too much. You know, despite the fact we've tried to separate it because it's all about funds, a distributed funds to help other startups. But regardless, I guess we don't want to be getting criticism and just answer it. It's putting it out. If really our investors think this is not a great idea and want us to stop, put our heads down and deliver a working product, then that's what we'll do. So we're making a huge potential change in our plan by this vote, which is to either stop at 4,500 Bitcoins and develop and deliver the fully working platform, or whether to continue and, you know, and leave the option open. We may well do the further fund and later on, but it's whether to stop and focus on that, or should we carry on the momentum right now and continue to raise to fund other projects.
And sort of adding in that the voting also would continue for opening up the second round. So everyone who
has the swarm will basically be able to vote on whether or not it would be unlocked in the future to do another funding round.
So it has profound impacts on people's holdings. If you are an investor right now in Swarm, it would effectively lock out dilution that would occur if we took more investments in a bigger pool. But it would mean that the larger number of shares you have now are effectively worth less each. So, it's that age-old question. It's a very complex one for any company. Do we have more shares of lower value or less shares of higher value? And is the sum of the total investment, would you rather have 1% of a really, really big pie or 10% of a little tiny one? And is shooting for the big pie appropriate? So there's a lot of embedded questions in the vote. It'll be really interesting to see people's opinions, and we are going to act on it. That's, I think, probably the most fundamentally important part of this. It's not a vote that's rigged to get the outcome we want. It's a vote where we will do what our investors tell us to do.
The great thing about that is it gives your platform a bit of flexibility and mobility without breaking your social contract.
Absolutely. The social contract is fluid and will change to demand, but it's always making sure that it's aligned with people's opinions, perspectives. But this is just the beginning. We're extending this to be a governance model for approving our expenditure, for example. So what we expect to see very shortly is more progressive companies that are far more accountable to the will of their investors. So, for example, what you may see is a projected expenditure plan, much like a national budget, being approved in principle, and then the change control of that as the things progress. There'll be an understanding that things occur and things change, but that, again, going to review and vote. Even if people choose not to vote, that it's open all the time to public scrutiny. So this is the sort of governance model that our platform is going to allow us to put in place for projects. Now, it won't fit all projects. If I would say, let's say there's a very established small community project that launched, that has been running for years, it's doing a minority fundraise, it might not be an appropriate governance model for them. But on the other hand, if you have a highly speculative startup where they need to implement a trust model in the way they operate, perhaps you've never been an entrepreneur before. So how can someone invest in your ability to succeed on a piece of paper? So this is going to give us an entirely new way to build a trust around and introduce advanced governance into small companies without it becoming a massive overhead.
This is going to be available to the companies that are built on top of Swarm. Yeah.
It's just available. It's a core component of our offering. This is as we said, it's our revolution. This is turning things completely around. We said, one of the things everyone screams about is the need for due diligence. But due diligence is all about an upfront protection. It's like putting on your seatbelt and saying, I feel really safe sitting in my driveway, but I'm ready to go now. I'll take that off. Away we go. I've worn my seatbelt. I'm safe. But what we're saying is, how about we put in place active safety, something that's actually contributing. We're the anti-lock brakes here. This is something that's a safety device or ongoing active due diligence, a social contract that can flex, but is always maintaining a check and balance. Our bugle. We're so, look, maybe it's just me. I am really excited about this stuff. And it's really hard to be remotely excited about due diligence. In fact, in a previous life, I would probably be the guy that hated due diligence.
Yeah, totally. But if you can make it work, and if you can make it interesting, and you've waltzed into a place where there's been none, and it's, people have been crying out for it. And like we were just talking about before, the Open Bazaar is deeply involved in trying to figure out a system for reputations.
I think a lot of places, but I just want to check, so I went off on a wild tangent there. Jeremy, did I come even remotely close to answering what you asked?
Yes, you did. actually. It was incredibly interesting to hear.
Right.
I'm actually glad I asked the question.
Well,
And by the way,
you've got the world exclusive there because we've just been, we're ready to announce it. So we've touched on this stuff, and there's been a couple of articles out there that have really skimmed the surface of it. But that's by far the most detailed explanation of some of the secret swarm source there.
Is there anything else we should get about addressing before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I think one of the really cool things that from our side at Swarm is, and Jeremy and I talked about this in the very beginning about how we wanted to have a sort of full stack solution and, really own all the infrastructure along the way. And, this would sort of insulate us from competitors. And, obviously there's a lot of other people who are looking at doing this crypto crowdfunding. And this was my initial thought, and, I shared it with Jeremy and all this stuff. But one of the, really cool things as things have evolved over time is I realized, and this is true across the counterparty space right now, and one of the things that makes me really excited about it is there's a sort of coin swapping that's kind of going on where, I don't actually own your project, but maybe I don't even have any real sort of, control, but, I do benefit from when your project does well. So I have tons of XDP now, and I'm excited, to see that value go up and the whole ecosystem around counterparty expand. I think other people in the XCP world, counterparty world, have a fair number of Swarm coins, and they're excited to see Swarm, succeed, and kind of vend, can have these other coins for different vending instances, and then, it'll be really excited to, I'll be really excited to have some of those as well, and, to kind of see those succeed. And it's kind of instead of, potentially being there is, I guess, a certain degree of, competition that exists, but it's also very autonomous, and you can kind of be, have the control over how heavily vested you are in any given thing, and have this kind of mutual incentivization structure that benefits everyone. Which is something, frankly, I've never seen anything like this before. But I don't know. And that's I'm really excited to see, maybe vending machine kind of set its own coins out there and, to facilitate that via Swarm.
That's an interesting thought, Jeremy. Do you have a business model for your platform?
Yes, we do. So the product itself, the software itself, then is open source. It's available for everyone to use. So the base software is there. We've created a company called Ven.io, which is like a service-based company. So essentially, what it offers is services to host, create, and customize vending machines for people. So for people or companies who don't wish to undertake the IT overhead or the security implications, Ven.io will take that up. So we've been creating world-class security, servers, monitoring, and frameworks to bring vending machines up and host them in the best way possible. And we roll that all up so that it becomes a turnkey solution for people who wish to use them. Of course, if a company or an organization is more advanced or has their own internal resources, they're definitely free to go and use Vend and use it by themselves. And I think that this is a thing which Bill touched on before, and it's really interesting. In a sense, the people who use Vend are competitors to us, but they're not at the same time, because we're both working on the ecosystem together to bring more value to the ecosystem. And I think that's really exciting.
The impression I get of what you're doing with Vend, Jeremy, is a bit like Ubuntu's service, like support service. Am I kind of on the right track with that?
Yes, it is actually. And for those who've been asking us, another way of putting it is that we'd like to be the Red Hat of cryptocurrencies, for example. So the base software is available free for everyone to use. However, we've got these value-added services that we'd be most happy to provide you.
I mean, that's something that the market's really dying for. Certainly, the non-technical market, the market for people who can't build a blockchain. And then I guess Swarm just takes your technology and moves it that much closer to the end user.
Yes, that's right. Maybe something that I'll mention as well is that there's many different ways and different markets and targets for this kind of technology. So one thing that Ben mentioned before is that for, say, a smaller crowdfunding, Swarm may or may not be maybe suitable. Maybe they don't need that governance model. Maybe they don't need this mechanism for voting. Although, to be honest, it sounds pretty good to have if it's something that you can get. What we are intending to set up, and it's in our pipeline at the moment, we're developing it, is a web front or a shop front where people can just come to vendor.io. They can select parameters for a vending machine, click a button, and in 5 or 10 minutes they'll have a vending machine set up. And what that costs is just a small flat fee per month. It's like a rental for the space, and it's suited for the DIY or the do-it-yourselfers, for those who just want to raise a small amount of funds for a particular project and want to be able to issue crypto equity. They want to do it by themselves. They'll have the project on their own website, and they'll just want something turnkey, but they don't need to invest a lot. They don't need to invest a lot of time. They don't invest a lot of capital to get it running, and get it running in a few minutes.
So Joel, have you got anything else you'd like to cover before we wrap it up?
Not in particular, just to say I'm just excited about how rapidly things are evolving, and how kind of spontaneous a lot of that seems to be, and, how these sort of incentivization structures, seem to be evolving as well to produce these really cool kind of mutually beneficial outcomes that, I don't know, I'm super excited about all of this as well. So.
All right, me too. This has been a fantastic discussion. I'm really stoked we finally got to catch up, guys.
Yeah, likewise.
Me too.
Are either of you guys going to be at the Bitcoin South conference?
I'm really going to try very hard to come down there. I get a kind of ulterior motive to get down there, haven't I?
Yeah, it'd be cool to see you down there.
Yeah, I'm going to try. I haven't got it for certain in my calendar yet, but if not the next one, certainly the next one. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, that's how these things go, eh?
I will be down there. So, it'd be great to catch up with people who actually operate in reasonable amounts of sunshine and things, because, fundamentally working out here in the UK, people are badly affected by lack of light, I think. So I'm just looking forward to meeting up with some normal people again.
More pigmented hue.
Leave that one. That's not for repeat.
No, right. I will. I'll edit that out. Okay, great, guys.
Yeah, well, it was a pleasure. So thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah, good to meet you, Ben.
Cheers, guys. Cheers.
Thanks very much. Excellent.
That's it for this week, folks. Thanks to Jeremy Lamb, Joel Dietz, and Ben Ingram for the content, the Beyond Bitcoin community for the support, and Cesis for the music. Pertinent websites can be found in the notes. Check out the weekly developer hangouts every Saturday morning US time on our Mumble server. Setup instructions can be found on beyondbitcoin.fm. With any luck, next week we'll be talking to representatives from BitSquare, the distributed fiat to crypto exchange currently in development, and also xcpfeeds.info, a platform which allows betting on counterparty binary feeds. I'll see you then.